You're listening to the Fan2Fan Podcast, and on this episode, we're talking about yet another Universal monster icon. We're talking about 1954's The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Here we go. Welcome back to the Fan2Fan Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Bernie Gonzalez. With me, as always, fellow co-host Pete Charbonneau. And Pete, we recently devoted an episode talking about 1941's The Wolfman, one of the icons, the Mount Rushmore of Universal monsters, along with Frankenstein and Dracula, the Invisible Man, the Mummy. And you were able to see The Wolfman at the Carolina Theater in Durham, and that was part of their retro programming where they play classic movies, cult classic movies, and really draw an audience of people like yourself. And you get to see these classic movies in a theater with an audience, which is pretty amazing because these are movies that you and I have both grown up with. We watched countless times, and part of that double feature, you were also able to see 1954's The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Science couldn't explain it, but there it was, alive in the deep, deep waters of the Amazon. A throwback to a creature that had existed 100 million years ago, immensely strong and destructive. A woman's beauty, the bait that brought it out of its lair. See underwater thrills never photographed before. See Titanic underwater battles never dreamed of before in this most terrifying of the science fiction adventures.
And this one was, if it wasn't sold out, it was really close, which was kind of awesome. This one has always been like a comfort watch for me. And it just goes back to when I saw it as a kid. There's something about when they're trapped in the Black Lagoon. It's like they're in that one space. You get that nature photography. You get like those shots of like the alligator like jumping off the log, or, you know, lagoon birds kind of flying around as you get like these shots of the wherever in Florida that they shot those scenes. There's just always been something about that I always have really liked coming back to. And it had been a while since I had seen it. And so I was like, I feel like this is another one that just want to see with an audience and just kind of enjoy that experience. Been talked about many times before, but 1954, Universal tried several times to kind of get out of the Universal monster business. It was like, I think this is dying out. And they reached back for one last shot at it and hit a home run with the creature design. Fantastic. I think by 1960, we're kind of at the end of the cycle, but Creature from the Black Lagoon is a hell of a way to kind of put that last tent pole up for, what was a several decade long journey with these Universal monsters.
I love Jack Arnold and like that documentary filmmaking. I think that was like his background, but watching it now, it really cements the idea of like, this is an expedition. There's something really interesting to me about the portrayal of like the science of it, just like the chapter in Dracula where they go on the boat. And once they're on the Demeter, that journal makes it feel like it's real because it changes the format. And there's something about that when you do that, at least for me, that takes something fantastical and feels like you're trying to ground it in something as relatable and as like believable as a journal entry. And I think that's what Jack Arnold, the director of Creature, did a good job doing. Look, he said, we're just going to move the camera over here and show some dragonflies, and then we're going to show some water. We're going to show some nature shots. Why? Because when we show you the Gill-man, we need to hopefully get you to understand that this monster could live in this world that for most people would be foreign anyway, the Amazon.
Yeah, he's part of the ecosystem, and you're not looking at him as a man in a suit. You're like, oh, I totally get this. Yeah, this thing has been here for millions of years. They do a great job again because they tease you with it with the, oh, I know of a place downriver, this lagoon. They call it the Black Lagoon, and no one's come back from it.
You say you have hopes of finding the rest of the fossil?
As soon as I get a suitable expedition together.
Well, why don't we make up the expedition? We're here now, and after all, it does come under the heading of our work, doesn't it, David?
It certainly does.
More and more, we're learning the meaning and the value of marine research.
It's all very familiar trope stuff now, but it totally works. They totally sell you on it. So when the Rita, the boat arrives there, you're ready to go, because what leads up to it and to that point is it's the table setting of, we've got to explore this even more because there's something going on here, and we have to figure out the mystery. And of course, you've got like the very broad stroke characters of the one doctor that's like, no, we've got to study this, and we got, and the other one that's just looking at like, how can we make as much money off of this as possible? And I don't care if I've got to kill the thing or capture it. We're bringing this back so that I can make a shit ton of money to fund maybe more research, but really just to make money. And then you're off and running from there.
Yeah. Plus you have, I think, all the atomic age movies that we also grew up with, them, Tarantula, and they're starting to set up this whole idea that science and the atomic age could potentially explain creatures like Godzilla. And if you believe that, the idea of having like this evolutionary throwback into creature, again, doesn't feel so unbelievable, because if you think that, well, oh, great, this is actually makes more sense. I can wrap my head around a humanoid Gill-man versus a 10-story lizard that has atomic breath. That feels a little bit far-fetched, although I love that too.
Here it is, gentlemen. Exactly as I found it.
It's amazing.
It's incredible. Could it possibly belong to a Pleistocene man?
Well, the chances are much greater that hand belonged to an amphibian, Mark. One that spent a great deal of time in the water.
Well, then how do you account for the structure of the fingers? Obviously for land use. What do you think, Dr. Matos?
We can be sure of one thing. Whatever it was very powerful.
Okay, so yeah, like you said, he's just part of the ecosystem, and this makes sense because they're portraying all the versions of this expedition, the people that want to take advantage and the people that want to research this. It all feels very grounded, again, for like a latter-day Universal film, especially when you kind of track that origin like we were talking about. If you start in the Gothic age, then you get to the Wolfman, which feels more modern. The Abbott and Costello movies are winking at the audience because now we all know the tropes. Creature is like, oh, no, like we've seen the atomic bomb people in the audience. Like we know the power of science, but also of nature. So all of a sudden now the Gill-man feels like it could be believable. And then you get a little extra skin in there on top of it where, yeah, this doesn't feel like it would be anywhere near levels of risque, obviously now, but you think about the underwater sequences, the bathing suits, there's a lot of sexuality on the screen for movies that, for the most part, in the Universal monster movies have not been very sexual.
Yeah, Julie Adams. I always want to say Julia, but I think it's just Julie Adams. It was a marketing gimmick. Like weren't like something like they insured her legs for like X amount of money. Miss Adams' legs have been insured by Lloyd's of London for whatever, 1954 sizable amount of money.
I'd heard that too. I think that's just one of those like nerd nuggets of knowledge that, people like you and me have heard somewhere along the way on a behind the scenes commentary or, something like that. And yeah, so I guess, so actress Julie Adams' legs were famously declared the, quote, the most perfectly symmetrical in the world by Universal Studios. They might have been a little biased, and they insured them for, here you go, Pete, $125,000 as a publicity stunt to promote her career, particularly after her iconic role in Creature from the Black Lagoon. Again, just all really part of really pushing the movie, pushing the publicity, and pushing people to the box office so that the Creature from the Black Lagoon can make them some money.
However, in 1954, Julie Adams turned the tables, playing Brainy K. Lawrence in Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Creature was one step away from just the victim because she was a scientist. She was an ichthyologist. So I got to have some of those long speeches about, the fish and the thorn and so forth. And so I think that it was one move away from just the pure victim, just the beautiful limp lady being carried away by the monster.
This is damning it with the faintest of praise. Creature from the Black Lagoon, I think her role is like, I don't know if she's like a research assistant or if she's a full-blown scientist. But she still doesn't have much to do other than be damsel in distress at the end of the day, but at least they were like trying or starting to try to give females a little more agency in this movie. Like, I'm not, and believe me, when I say that, like, they're still eons away from where they needed to be, but like, it's like, okay, an effort was made. You can add as much weight or as little weight to that. That's she see fit.
I like that modicum of praise. It's like, all right, so if you go back, like, it is barely pushing the envelope for like 1950s Hollywood standards. She still has nothing to do. So this is not like a feminist role where she is the lead scientist. None of that is happening. There's still a lot of the like, oh no, we need to sexualize her, show her on the screen, and in some ways have some not so subtle nods about maybe a sexual relationship. I think the Gill-man's horny, and that's kind of obvious.
Yeah, the Gill-man's totally horny. There's no question about it.
The creature is awkward, clumsy, he has big pits on his face, and he's ugly and he's unpopular. Okay? And he's in love with the beautiful girl. You know, can't you see why adolescent boys would identify with this guy, you know? Plus, the adolescent boys lived in the Black Lagoon of their room, you know, where they couldn't leave, you know, just like the creature. And so all boys had a thing for Julie Adams.
I can't imagine that he's seen very many beautiful women in white bathing suits up until that point. So there's multiple reasons why he looks like he's gulping for air in a couple of those scenes when he's like out of the water.
One of the sexiest scenes ever done in a horror science fiction movie of the period. Nothing much really happens. It's all very suggestive. Julie Adams takes a swim. She jumps off the boat and is swimming in the river and is unaware that the creature is swimming underneath her and around her and is mirroring her movements and almost seems like it's making love to her underwater.
We were certainly aware that there was, a sex appeal, but we really didn't know, I don't think, the sort of erotic undertone that scene had and that would have that effect on the audience.
Another nugget that I got from the Carolina was the Wolfman and Creature were the two Universal monster movies that were not based on any literary, or maybe it might have been The Mummy, not based on any literary reference.
That actually is a good point, because you've got Dracula, the 1931 movie that was adapted from Bram Stoker's novel, Frankenstein, again, same thing, 1931. Universal Studios was busy. That's the Mary Shelley novel. Invisible Man, that's from H.G. Wells' novel. Again, Phantom of the Opera, 1925, kind of like the forgotten, underrated Universal monster. That's off from a novel as well. So yeah, really, it's really just those, not The Mummy, not the Wolfman, and not Creature from the Black Lagoon, that are part of that literary-based Universal monster horror canon. Oh no, they're products of their time. The Gill-man is a product of the atomic age, of creature features, of latter-day Universal monsters.
Science hunts Amazon Gill-man in the most astounding expedition of our time.
This is exactly as it was 150 million years ago, when it was part of the Devonian era.
As man continues his conquest of the unknown, daring underwater adventurers challenge the world's most treacherous waters to find the only living link with the beginning of time. Creature from the Black Lagoon, rising from the monstrous depths to astound and terrorize the world. No. Feel the frightening fury of a man-beast, aroused to strange emotions by its first sight of a woman. See underwater thrills never filmed before. Amazing underwater battles never dreamed of before. Creature from the Black Lagoon, starring Richard Carlson and Julia Adams, the screen's first underwater 3D thrill.
Because it was really part of that 1950s 3D boom, right? You get the Wanted Devil, it's a starting gun to the 3D boom of the 50s. And if you go back to the Creature, you get the underwater photography. All right, well, that's groundbreaking. On top of that, you get this movie in 3D. And as we have kind of found in our research, because it's in black and white, you get less of a muddy picture. Creature was basically built for 3D. It was shot in 3D.
Yeah, and the knowledge that it was shot for 3D, I think, escaped me for so many years, that getting to see it this time and now going in knowing that, now when you see some of those shots, you're like, oh, it makes total sense. There's like the one camera zoom of the fossilized creature's hand that's sticking out of like the rock, where like it just zooms right in on it. Oh yeah, now I see it. Like, but that went over my head for so many different years. The one other thing that I was going to add, and we'd be remiss by not saying it because it's been a corrective in recent years, and it should be brought up every time, is the design of the Gill-man for so many years was credited to the head of Universal Studios, head of makeup, Bud Westmore, credited to him because he took the credit for it, when in fact it was designed by a female, Millicent Patrick, who was purposely by Universal kind of shunted to the side for the promotion of the film. It's the makeup department, and Bud Westmore's the head of the makeup department, so he gets all the credit. And for many, many decades, that was the common story, but now we know different. And I think she deserves all the credit for just what is absolutely dynamite design and creation of a character that, is just instantly iconic. So hats off to Millicent for outstanding work there.